GetLowered, thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. We are doing another how-to paint video. This time I'm repainting the 3.5 gallon, and then once I install this, I'm going to go ahead and repaint the 4.5 gallon. Oh, look at that. Those are some jets. Anyways, getting back on topic. So what is the plan? What can you do? How do you prep for paint? So this is a 80 grit sanding paper. So this is very abrasive to the paint, but we're using a orbital sander, so we're not cutting into it. We're not making any gashes or anything like that. It's going to be a nice smooth finish, as you can see right here. Right? So what I'm currently doing, I'm removing all of the gold leaf. Right, we are taking that off because the gold leaf doesn't adhere to the surface as good as clear coat and base and all that other stuff. Right, so okay, let's go back. To prep it, you could do it two ways. You could do it the way I'm doing it, which is sanding it down. You could use paint stripper to completely take it down to metal, but then of course you'll have to add a few coats of primer after that, and primer sealer and all this other stuff. I like painting on top of just regular paint. Right, if there's anything as far as imperfections, you could take it down to whatever coat you have, or to whatever imperfection it is, depending on the scratch, of course. If it's down to metal, you'll have to feather it down to metal. If it's down to the base coat, you have to take it down to the base coat. All right, you guys, I'll show you on the rear fender when I go take it over there. But the way I'm doing it today, of course, I'm not taking it down to just bare metal. I'm just taking it down to what I believe is the best surface for the paint, which is basically this, what you see here. Like I said, this is 80 grit, so it's very, how do you say? I just said the word, I just forgot it right now. So let's go ahead and set this down to the side. So like I said, what I'm doing is I'm removing all of the gold leaf to make sure I have a good solid surface to spray my primer on top of, because this is 80 grit. All right, it's deep. 80 grit is going to be perfect for the primer that I'm going to spray on top of this, and that's going to give me a good solid surface to block sand down with, to a 180, maybe a 320. I'd say a 320 after the primer, and then I'm gonna spray my base on my metal flake. So like I said, I'm doing this so I can remove all the gold leaf, so I can have a solid surface, a solid foundation. I don't trust the gold leaf because like I said, it doesn't adhere as good as the base coat and all the other stuff. So we're just starting. Like I said, we're just starting. Tape up any opening, stuff like that. The other way you could do it, of course, is you could use paint stripper, or you could just sand it down to to metal. You could do that. It works. There's multiple different ways to do it. I would say that would be the proper way to do it, so you don't have so many coats of paint on top. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rear fender, which is already prepped and ready for primer. Alright, so here we have the rear fender. I already removed all of the gold leaf. If you guys seen, of course, my previous paint job, that was all gold leaf. You can see it. That was all gold leaf. I went ahead and I removed it. I also noticed there was a little bit of rust here, so I'm guessing that was before my repairs on my paint. So I went ahead and I removed that. And you can see all of the layers of paint. Okay, you have the clear. You have the candy, which is I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a root beer. So you have the clear root beer, and then of course you have the base coat, and then you have the metal flake, which is this one right here. And then below that you have the base coat of the OEM. No. Yeah, this is my base coat. This is my base coat below the metal flake. Then you have my primer sealer. And then you have the original color, which is, I believe, a blue base coat. No, that's the clear underneath. That's the Harley-Davidson OEM clear, the base coat, and then their primer, which is a black primer. So you guys can see all of the layers. How many layers do we got? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 layers of paint that I'm going to be spraying primer. So now I'm going to add you know, I'm going to add a few more layers on top of that. But the way I see it is this helps out with, you know, smoothing out the surface. All right, this is what you want. When you have a scratch, like right here, you want to feather it out. That way it doesn't, you know, stand out when you're doing the next couple layers. Same thing over here. You can see there's a little bit of rust. I took it down. Same thing. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nine coats. Is that what I said earlier? So I'm still prepping this up. You can see this one's a little bit it's not feathered out yet right here, but I mean, this is where the license plate goes, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna fix that anyways. So like I said, I removed all of the gold leaf. You can see it over here as well. A little bit of rust still in there, but so I took it down to bare metal. You can see there's rust right there as well. I don't know how I missed that the first time around, but this thing was damaged. This thing was all rusted out too, if you guys seen the videos, or I'm not even sure if I've even uploaded it, but this is pretty much the way I'm gonna spray the primer. Like I said, everything's feathered out, so nothing's gonna stand out too much on the next couple layers. When you're building layers on top of this stuff, any imperfection that you have in here in your foundation, you're gonna start seeing it on your final product. So that's why you'll have to probably do a few more coats of primer so you can build up the layers, so you can, you know, even that out and flatten it out. So like I said, we're using 80 grit, so it's very abrasive, and it speeds up the workflow. And on top of that, we have an orbital sander, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not cutting into the paint. I'm feathering it out just the way you see it here. All right, so you want a nice transition from metal to paint. That way when you spray the primer, it's going to lay down nice and flat and smooth. So we still have a couple spots like this, which is, you know, the clear. This is a low spot. I'm going to just scuff that up to make sure I have a good solid foundation. You don't want to paint on top of clear, because your product's not going to stick, and there's nothing for the primer to bite down into. So this is pretty much ready. Like I mentioned, we're going to spray this with primer. We're going to spray the fuel tank once that's done, and then we'll revisit when it's ready. All right, stay tuned. All right, so we finished sanding them down. I just finished cleaning them up. I used water, and I also used some Invisiglass out of the can. You give it about 20 minutes for the Invisiglass to kind of evaporate if there is any extra residue that comes off, of course. So you can see the original paint is red, or like a burgundy. You can see that I sprayed it with the base, metal flake, candy, and then of course I laid down all the designs. So there it is. We are going to spray both of these parts with primer, and the reason why we're going to spray with primer is so we can fill in all the 80 grit scratches, and then we're going to sand it down. Yes, you can sand this down without primer. You can sand it down with the 380, have it ready for the base. But since, you know, I'm going to sand it down with the 380, I might as well just spray it with the primer filler. That way I could, you know, I could have the benefits of the primer, and I can have the benefits of, you know, because I'm going to sand it down anyways. So I'm going to sand it down with the 380 once we spray the filler primer. So we're going to have all these benefits of the primer. We're going to fill in all the 80 grit scratches. The metal's going to get covered and protected by the elements. And then, of course, we have to sand it down anyways with the 380. So you might as well sand it on the filler primer. That way everything is nice and smooth and uniform and stuff like that. And then, of course, we're going to spray it with the base coat after, and then we'll shoot our metal flake. So let's go ahead and mix up some primer and start spraying. This looks like it's ready. It's drying up pretty good. We'll just hit it with the air. Make sure, you know, we get all the contaminants off of it. And then we're going to probably spray about 2 coats of primer just to get a nice coverage and have enough material to sand down and even out this whole, you know, this whole surface and stuff like that. So stay tuned. All right, so here we are. We're mixing up some primer. Of course, you can see the mixing ratio right here. 4 parts primer, 1 part activator, and then of course you also have another option if you want to shoot a little bit of reducer. It'd be 4 parts primer, 1 part activator, which is what you have over here, and then one part reducer, so that would just thin out the material, and it'll spray. I mean, it's not going to be exactly like primer sealer, but it's going to be a little bit closer. That way that would be like, yeah, I would say it would just lay down a little flatter. So we already mixed it, like I said, 4 parts. You use this section, of course you fill it up to 1, and then you add the activator, and then you just give it a little bit of a mix, and then we just check it. It looks pretty good right now, so we're gonna go ahead and spray it. Like I said, we should have enough here for 2 coats. 2 coats of the primer filler, and then we're gonna put this into our spray, our HVAC, our high volume, low pressure HVLP gun, and then we're gonna be pretty much ready. And you can see the instructions right here. Between coats, 10 to 15 minutes. You always check your material. You could also spray this with a can, but the urethane primer is always best. All right, so the compressor turned on there, of course. So 10 to 15 minutes between coats. It's very important to follow this, guys. All right, don't try to rush it. Flash time is very important. You don't get any chemicals trapped inside of the first coat. Then you start to see fish eyes and imperfections and all this other stuff. It's not fun. All right, so you give it 10 to 15 minutes flash, and then looks like we're gonna wait 75 to 90 minutes to dry it. So it's very fast, very, very fast, of course. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the final sand, which is, I mean, it really depends on you. You could add a bunch of coats of primer, but we're gonna sand it down, not with the 180, not with the 200, but we're gonna sand it down with the 320. And I just like 320 because it bites a little bit better. The grip, that's what I want. So we're gonna sand it with the 320 after we spray the first 2 coats, and that's going to be my final sand. So like I mentioned, you could also sand it with the 180 and then spray an additional coat of primer if you're not happy with the first results or the first couple coats. You could keep on spraying until you're absolutely happy. Then you would sand it with the 320 or the 400, and then you would spray your base coat, you're clear, and you're pretty much done. So we have it here mixed up. I'm shooting it out of a 1.7. I'm shooting it out of a 1.7 in case you're wondering. This stuff is a little bit thicker. If you do have clogging issues, then you would add, of course, that reducer to thin it out a little bit more if you don't have a huge nozzle to shoot out of. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and spray it. I'm not going to record it because I have videos on it. You guys can just, it's just fast forwarding, so it doesn't add to the video, the length of the time. All right, so let's get to work. In case you're wondering, we spray it at 50% coverage, or 75% overlap, or 50% overlap. The main point is this is filler primer, so we want to have 100% coverage so we can get rid of all the imperfections, and like I mentioned earlier. All right, so let's get to work. Alright, so we spray the primer. Still a little wet, but for some reason it was just shooting out chunks. So maybe I gotta clean my my spray gun. But anyways, you can see the little imperfections of the sanding with the 80 grit, and that's what we're gonna do. We're adding layers so we can smooth out all of those imperfections from the 80 grit. And you can see there's gonna be little hints of odd stuff. You can see it down here and stuff like that. You can really see it here. So that's what we're going to do with the 320. That's going to knock everything down and make it into a nice smooth surface. Let's see if you can see anything here. I don't mind these blotches of primer because I'm going to sand it down anyways. But all of this, of course, like I said, it's going to help our overall foundation and give us a nice solid foundation to spray the next coming coats. So here, let's see, I think right here you can see that little gouge, and that's probably from just sanding it with the 80 grit. I actually removed the cushion. I removed it because it was just taking way too long, so I pulled that off and I was able to speed through this a lot sooner. You can see the fender as well. So this is the metal right here, of course, and then around the metal. You can start seeing the layers of the paint, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to try to even everything out so we can have a nice solid smooth finish. You can see my lines from the previous design right there. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna block all of this down with the 320. We're gonna have a nice smooth surface, and then we're gonna start spraying our metal flake and our base coat once we're happy with the overall results. So we're gonna let this sit for about an hour and a half. You could probably start sanding it sooner because it's already, you know, drying. This is super quick. It dries super quick. We're right underneath the sun, so it's gonna accelerate the dry time, but I don't want my sanding paper to get gunk up and get clogged by sanding it prematurely. So we gotta let it dry. That way our sanding paper can do the job of knocking down all the primer and smoothing out the surface. So it's just, you know, overall you can speed it up, yes, but you're gonna end up using more sanding paper, and there's really no point of doing that, because now you got to clean out your sanding paper or replace the sanding paper, and then you're gonna clog it up, and it's not gonna sand. It's not gonna do the job that it's supposed to do, sanding down the surface. And what we're gonna be looking for, stay tuned. I'm gonna show you what to look for once we're all said and done. Yeah, just let this dry out. We'll be back in time, and I don't know, maybe I'll show you guys how to sand it. I really don't think it's necessary, but maybe I'll just include it in the video. Alright, so now we're sanding the filler primer. You guys can see the difference between what I've sanded down over here, which is, this is 400 grit. I can't find my 320, but 400 grit, 320, it's fine. Alright, so this is of course the 320, and then this is, I've sanded it down a little bit, but I kind of left it untouched over here so you guys can see what to kind of look for. So you can see that the filler primer is doing the job. Right, all those little swirls you guys see, that's all from the 80 grit. So this is what blocking it down means. You block it down until it's a nice, smooth, even finish. So all of this is good. Of course, this is paint underneath, so it's not metal. I'm not too worried about it not adhering to the surface. This will stick. Right, if you have a lot of, you know, a lot of bare metal, then you should probably spray a couple more coats of primer just to be on the safe side. So let's go ahead and look at the side of the fuel tank. Of course, you can see all the little 80 grit scratches are filled in. You can see the little imperfections in there. That is still high. All right, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm blocking it down so it's a smooth surface. You could use, I don't know what you call it. I've used it when I first started doing auto body. It's like a black adhesive or a black paint, spot paint, so you can see where you still have to touch. But I mean, really, just by looking at it, you could obviously see low spots and high spots. So, of course, we still have to prep this up a little bit more. But since we're spraying metal flake, I'm pretty sure that's going to get filled up easily with the metal flake coats, because it's, you know, it's going to be thicker. So I'm not too worried about it, but I'm still going to knock it down because I had quite a bit of that stuff over here. All right, so this is what it's supposed to look like. Of course, we're going to spray it black so we can have a nice even base coat, and then we spray our metal flake on top of that. So that's what that looks like. And of course, the other side, I have not touched it yet. You can see it still has all that stuff on there. So we still have to, of course, touch that, and then we still have to do the rear fender. So same thing, we're just going to take our sander, and like I said, this is an orbital sander, so it doesn't dig in and it doesn't give us more work. You could use, you know, the grinders and stuff like that, but it's gonna remove a lot of material, so it could catch you off guard. So yeah, I mean, we just sand it down. I don't know if you guys see my other videos, but it's pretty much, you just sand it down. I put the pad back on there because, like I said, this is going to be my final sand. If you want to remove material quick, then you would take off the pad, and then just, you know, remove as much material, depending on how many coats of, you know, primer you applied. You could, like I said, you could spray a lot of primer. It's going to take you more work to you know, get it down to a smooth surface. So I'm pretty happy with this over here. I'm going to keep on sanding, and then we're going to spray the base coat, and of course we got to clean it up again. Now for the stuff that you can't really reach with the with the sander, of course, you have the scuff pad. So this is where you would use the scuff pad. Of course, this is a red scuff pad. It's a little yellowish because it's been sitting out in the sun. But this is a red, so this is the same as a 320 grit. So you would just, you know, sand it down. That's what I also like to do. I like to hit it one more time with the scuff pad. Just hit the whole surface with the 320 scuff pad. I like doing that because there's a few spots where the sander's not going to be able to reach in there, and then this is where you grab the scuff pad and just get it in there. And it's nice because it takes the shape of the fuel tank, so you're not, you know, you're not removing too much material, and then at the same time it's still protecting the surface because it takes the same shape of whatever it's up against. So right here, of course, you have the contour of the tank. Then on the back of it, you also have the contour of the tank, so you're not overdoing it. And then of course you also have the edges. If you really want to get in there and not get that high spot of the weld, you can get in there like so. All right, so we're gonna finish with the sander, hit the fender, and then I'm gonna go ahead and give it a once go with the red scuff pad, because you know the bottom of the tank, it's not flat. And of course, if you keep on hitting it with the sander, you're gonna start getting into your base, into the metal and stuff like that. So it's a good idea to use the scuff pad around these edges, and that's what I typically do. I'll do all the flat surface with the tool, and then for these little spots underneath the tank, I'll go ahead and use the scuff pad, touch it up, and then just do a once over, and we're pretty much ready. So stay tuned. We're going to finish sanding these down. We're going to clean them once again with the Invisiglass. We're going to clean them up with the Invisiglass, and then we're going to start laying down our base and our metallic flake. So stay tuned. Right, so I just finished cleaning it up with the Invisiglass. We're going to let the chemicals kind of air out a little bit before we spray our base coat. So give it about 20 minutes just to be on the safe side. Sometimes, you know, the cleaner has some chemicals in there. You don't really know how it's going to get affected by the base coat or the clear or whatever. So you always want to let it air, just, you know, just to be on the safe side. Give it like 20 minutes. Even though it looks dry, you know, it looks dry and it looks ready, just, you know, let it breathe a little bit. So you guys can see the fuel tank. I took off quite a bit of the primer. There's still a lot of here. I do have an imperfection right there. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but those are some deep scratches. But I'm going to show you what the metal flake can do, because we're going to spray it heavy. Well, not heavy. We're going to spray probably 2 coats, maybe 3 coats, but you're going to have the base coat and then the 2 coats of metallic flake, and then we're going to add another clear coat to kind of seal everything in and stuff like that. So I'm pretty certain the metal flake's going to take care of that. And then we have, of course, the rear fender over here, and you can see that I left a lot of the primer on this. The reason being is because here we do have quite a bit of metal spots without paint. So I wanted to make sure I have enough primer so the base can grip and bite. This whole spot right here, this is all metal. This spot right here, that's all metal. So I just wanted to make sure I have enough material. You can see metal. There's a significant piece right here that's metal as well. So this is where you would probably want to spray maybe 2 more coats of primer so we can even out the base with the exposed metal right here, of course. So we're just, you know, I'm just showing you stuff. Like I said, you guys can, I'm pretty sure the metal flake is going to take care of these minor imperfections. You can see, you can also, you know, touch the surface and you can feel how smooth it feels. Even with the 400 grit, this thing is just smooth. I mean, it's your hand will glide right over it. Anywhere where you still have to prep it, you will feel the roughness. So I mean, this is the reason why I don't use that black spotted paint to kind of look for low spots, high spots, and spots that I have not yet touched. You know, while I'm sanding it, I'm also touching it at the same time with the back of my hand, of course, so I don't contaminate the surface. I've already cleaned this up, and I don't want to touch because of course you touch everything with your fingers, you might pick up chemicals or debris and stuff like that. So that's why I've built that habit to touch the back of my knuckles, and you can just feel how smooth the surface is, and it's just absolutely perfect right now for the base and the metallic flake. So I'm just, like I said, we're just going to give it a couple more minutes, let it dry, and then we're going to spray our metal flake. We're going to spray our base, because we want a uniform foundation. All right, metal flake on top of this, and on top of this, and on top of this. It's going to look completely different. It's going to throw the shade of the metal flake completely off. All right, it's going to change it. If I've sprayed white helmets with metal flake, and I sprayed black helmets with metal flake, I typically spray on black base, because one, it's inexpensive. Two, I just like how the contrast of the metal flake on top of the base, the black base. I really like the way it looks. You could spray it on top of primer, but you have to, have one solid color, because like I said, the metal flake on top of all these different shades, it's gonna look different. Now you could spray a ton of metal flake, you could do that, but why waste all that metal flake when you could just spray the base, which is absolutely cheap, compared to the metal flake, which is about $60 per pound. All right, or half a pound. Sorry, I think it's half a pound. So we're gonna let it dry, spray the base. Of course, it's 1-to-1 mixing ratio, depending on what you buy. I'll show you guys when I mix it. I'll show you guys when I mix it, and then we're gonna do a spray. It's not a metallic finish or anything like that, so all we're looking for is for coverage. So we're probably going to do maybe two coats of base, maybe. If the first coat doesn't give me full coverage, I'll spray it a second time. All right, so we just finished spraying 2 coats of base. You guys can see what that looks like. I also sprayed it with a little bit of air, just to kind of get all the debris off of it. Of course, if you have a tack cloth, this is where you would do it, just to remove some of that overspray that's still on there, and just to make it a little bit smoother. Of course, here's the rear fender. You guys can see something's going on right here. Just noticed it. It looks like the paint's lifting. That absolutely sucks. But it's underneath the tail light. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but we'll see what happens in the metal flake. We'll see what happens in the metal flake. You see how that kind of reacts. I don't know why it's lifting up now, because I sanded it, it wasn't doing anything, and then when I sprayed it, I just noticed that it's lifting up just a tad bit. So we're just gonna keep on spraying. All right, we're not gonna stop. You don't want that kind of stuff, because of course the next couple layers, they're gonna fuse, but I mean, that's gonna be a little bit iffy once we get to that spot. So I'm not too worried about it, because like I said, this is where the tail light goes, so that's going to be covered up. Not a big deal. You guys can see how the overall base is looking pretty good. We mixed it, of course. There's still a little bit of imperfections, but like I said, we are going to spray maybe like 3 coats of clear with the metal flake, and then we're gonna block it down. And then we're going to have that smooth surface that we're looking for. And we're still going to spray a few more coats of clear after that. So I'm not too worried about the little imperfections. Let's look for those 2 deep scratches that I mentioned. You can still see them right there. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but there's still quite a bit of deep scratches. This is stuff that you don't want if this is your final coat. You don't want that sort of stuff. But like I said, there's still like a little bit of debris up there, and that's just like I said, that's where the tack cloth comes in handy and removes all that stuff. So you got to set up your components where you're gonna have nice flowing spraying pattern, especially with the metal flake. All right, you can't have you guys can see, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I moved the fuel tank up towards the front because I need to be able to spray 50%, 70% overlay. All right, if this was all the way to the back like it used to be, I'm not going to be able to spray in this area consistently. with the metal flake. It's going to be spotty. That's when you start getting tiger striping. You guys know that term. You're going to start getting spotty spots on your surface. So you got to set up your ports kind of like this, enough for you to have free flow spraying pattern. That way you don't stop or you don't blog up at a tip or an end. Or like I said, if the spray gun cannot, you know, be down here, then you're not going to get that 50%, that consistent spraying overlay, right? If we start up here because we don't have any room down here, of course, let's say if it was, you had to mount it somewhere where you can't spray it down here, because you need to be able to spray it down over here so you can get that overlay. If you spray it up here, you're going to have more material in the middle. You're not going to have that material at the bottom. So then you're going to get like a fanning effect from the bottom, because it's not going to be consistent. You'll be able to spray here, and then once you're done, of course, you're going to have all of this extra, base coat that's not going to be covered in metal flake. Yes, you could spray it maybe like this, sideways, but now you're laying down a lot of material as far as, you know, you're flowing your pattern. So then you'll have to, you know, probably do this, spray it like this so you could get that bottom piece. You know what I'm saying? Instead of spraying it like this, because now you're putting on way too much material in this spot. All right, it's not the proper way to do it. Or you could always, you know, swap your nozzle, change your nozzle vertical instead of switch it horizontal instead of vertical, so you can have, you know, that same pattern. But you'll have to, of course, spray it up and down like this so you could have consistent coverage, uniform consistent coverage. Same thing right here. You guys are noticing that the fender's floating on a canister. It's flowing on there because I get good coverage down over here. You guys can see where my spray gun is at. I can spray it below the line of the fender, and I'll have consistent metal flake throughout the whole rear fender, of course. So I already cleaned this up. This is the one I sprayed it with. We always give it about 20 to 30 minutes of flash time between the base coat and the clear coat. And that's what we're doing. We're just giving it some time to flash. That way the clear coat will adhere to the surface, perfectly, stuff like that. So, like I mentioned, just give yourself enough space. What I've been doing with the rear fender is I've been just rotating it on this canister right here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spray one side first. I'm going to shoot it below, a little bit below the rear fender, and then I'm going to start carrying that on top. Alright, I was slightly interrupted, of course, getting back on the location. Of course, this is not proper. I don't have any room to move, so give yourself enough space to kind of move. What I'm doing is I'm just shifting the this little piece. I'm shifting it left and right so I can get good coverage on both sides. And of course, I'm tilting it using this right there so I could get underneath the tank without floating it, without hanging it on top of something, so I could get good coverage all the way around. So I'm spraying it underneath here, getting good decent coverage, putting my finger over here where it's not gonna contaminate the surface, tilting it over to the other side, and then spraying this other stuff. So if you have anything out that you don't plan on painting, I suggest you cover it, all right, because the metal flake gets everywhere. Metal flake will get everywhere. There's a bunch of overspray when you spray metal flake. So, all right, stay tuned. I'm gonna mix up some clear. I like shooting it in clear. You can shoot it in a blending coat or in a clear base if you want. You can do either or. I like spraying it in my clear because I know it's gonna harden and it's gonna dry fairly quickly, and it's gonna be sealed with the surface. That's why I like doing it in my clear coats. There's really no wrong way to do it. You can spray it in a clear urethane base, or in a binder, or in a blending coat. You could spray metal flake in there, and then of course clear it. Maybe I'll do that with this. Maybe I'll shoot it in my clear urethane Nah, no, no, no. I'm just gonna shoot it in my clear. So we're gonna do that, and of course, I want a heavy flake, so I'm going to add more metal flake, so I don't add a lot of, you know, coats of clear. This is where I always mention you have to be aware of your surroundings and your climate. All right, if it's a cold day, you want to shoot less coats of metal flake and less coats of clear. If it's a hot day, then you could spray, of course, whatever you want. People can spray. If you have if you have a spray and bake, you could shoot up to 6-7 coats. All right, I don't have a spray and bake. We're outside. It's going to get cold tonight, so I have to have that in mind when I'm spraying my metal flake. You have to be aware of the climate and the conditions of the weather if you're spraying outside. All right, so we're going to spray 2 coats, like I said, 2 coats of metal flake, heavy metal flake, and then I'm going to spray 1 coat of clear. And you know what, maybe I'll spray another coat. Maybe I'll spray 4 coats, 2 metal, two final clear coats, and then you know, we'll have some good coverage here. So stay tuned. We'll mix up the metal flake, and then we're gonna start spraying, because I believe it's already been like 20 minutes. I've been doing a lot of talking. All right, so let's go ahead and spray our clear. Like I said, you could use the intercoat. Like I mentioned, you could use an intercoat. This is SG100. This is from House of Color. You can use that. You can use a blending coat. You can use whatever. I like using clear because I know once it's dry, that's the final product. All right, I like using the clear. You know, it's $100 for the clear with the activator. You could buy a pre-mixed blender if you want, and I believe that's $100 itself. Or ready to spray, as you can say. Make sure you don't get any dirt in this, because you cannot strain metal flake. All right, so you always got to, you know, clean the top of this just to kind of get the debris out. That way you don't introduce it in your metal flake, because like I said, you're not going to be able to strain this. So we're gonna shoot. We're shooting the tank and the rear fender. I think we'll have enough if we, because all right, here, let's go ahead and look at this again. So here's the suggested mixing ratio: 4 parts clear coat, 1 part activator. That's what we got. So we need to go over here to our measuring cup, look for 4-1, which is this one. You can't use one of these other ones. All right, so if you want consistent dry time and results, you gotta, you know, use what you're instructed to do. So we have a medium activator. It's about 60 degrees, so I'd say we're right at the lowest part of that suggested activator. Let's go ahead and start pouring out our clear. I think that might be enough. You know what? Probably not. Let's go ahead and just go up just a tad bit more. We're gonna shoot, like I said, a heavy metal flake on this one, so we don't have to spray a lot of coats. You know, the less coats you spray, the faster this thing's going to dry. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our activator. I'm doing this with one hand because I don't have the chest mount on this. All right, so here we go. We're now aiming for that number 4, and just a bit more. There we go. So we have a good mixing ratio of 4-1, which is what Speed Code wants. Now we have to mix this up, of course, and then we got to get our metal flake. So we just mix this up for a few, and then we're gonna grab our metal flake and we're gonna pour that in there. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna use a lot. All right, so stay tuned. All right, so let's go ahead and start mixing our metal flake. But I just want to give you guys a heads up when you're using a metal flake. Not every metal flake is the same. All right, the one up here from Paint Huffer, this is a .004. This is a micro silver. This one down here from Tropical Glitz, this is a Platinum Plus. This is a .006. So be aware of what size metal flake you're using if you have multiple different sizes. I have a .008, this is a .006, and this is a .004. You can mix all this stuff together, of course. You could throw in a little bit of .004 and a little bit of .006. Heck, you know, if you want, throw in .008 in there, you can, all right? You can do whatever you want. You just got to have a consistent, like I said, you got to have consistency in all your parts if you're painting different parts in different, you know, days. You don't want to spray your fender and your tank with the .004 and then spray your fairing and your front fender as a .004. You got to remember what size you're using. So for this one, we're going to be going with the .006, slightly bigger, but it's not too big. I really like the smaller flake. I'm not a big fan of the .008. I think you lose a little bit of definition. The way I see it is, it's the 300 dots per inch, which is the printing. You have 72 DPI, which is your screen resolution, and you have 300 DPI, which is you know, stuff that you hold in your hand, so it'd be like paper. So 72 DPI, that's the way I see it. 72 DPI would be the .008. In person, bigger flake doesn't give you that definition when you have the, you know, the little designs that I lay that I lay down. All right, so this one I like smaller flake because you have a smaller you have a smaller flake, and it gives you a little bit more definition and sharpness. In my opinion, that's the way I see it. So we're gonna go ahead, open this up. .006. Now we got to remember that if we're going to be painting the fairing, which we are, which is over there. The only reason why I'm not going to paint it today is because I'm still waiting on the hand guards. So once again, I got to put the camera down. All right, so there we have it. It's windy, so this is something that you want to also keep in mind. Metal flake will blow away with a little bit of gust of wind. Even if you breathe on it, it will blow away, so you have to keep that in mind. So let me go ahead and grab my little spoon here, and like I said, we are going to spray this heavy. Like I'm talking, and it's already blowing away. So you see all of that stuff right there? All of that just blew away. So we're gonna use. I like using these little utensils. If you guys seen my videos, because I'm able to keep control and I don't let this stuff go to waste. So let's go ahead and cover up our metal flake because it's blowing away because it's gusty. So we're going to see what this looks like, and whatever this looks like on your mixing utensil, I guess you could say this, or your stick. That's the way it's going to spray on there. So we have a little bit of flake on top that got stuck. So we're mixing it. I think I want a little bit more. Like I said, I want good coverage on the first. And that's a lot of metal flake. So let's go ahead and look at that. That's gonna be thick right there. So that's good coverage. All right, so we're mixing this. Like I said, this is already mixed 4-in-1. So it's always a good idea to put in your metal flake after, because if you put your metal flake in before your clear or whatever base, you're not going to have that mixing ratio that you want, because the metal flake's going to, you know, it's going to give you a false reading. Two and a half spoonfuls of metal flake, and you can see what it's going to look like right there. That's good coverage, guys. Alright, so we sprayed our first coat of metal flake. You guys can see how well it looks. Good coverage all the way around. I would say this is about the same consistency as the saddlebags you guys are seeing up there. I would say that's the same consistency. We still have a lot of metal flake, a lot left, so that's gonna suck. I don't know. I misjudged it by a little bit. We'll probably have a little bit left over, but we can keep on spraying it. Just the only thing is, you know, the consistency is key. The candy shade is going to be different from the saddlebags, so you can still see base here. If I spray, I think the next coat of metal flake is going to completely cover up my base coat. So we'll see what happens. I'll probably end up spraying the saddlebags again. They're pretty much sanded right now, so I could just spray them again. I just gotta find room to spray it. So we'll probably do that. If I have a lot of metal flake left over, I'm going to spray the saddlebags again, and then maybe we'll have that all sorted out. But good coverage. We used a ton of metal flake. You guys can see, like I said, this really depends on you. If you want a little bit of that base coat of that contrast, then you know this is pretty much what you want. And then we spray the final coats of clear so we can seal this in, and then we have room to kind of work and sand down and straighten and smooth out and all that other stuff. So I really like this look. It's just that I don't want to you know, let all of this go to waste. This is already mixed. You can't save this. You cannot save this. Once you mix it with the activator, it has to be sprayed. So instead of letting that go to waste, I think I'm going to respray the saddlebags, maybe the lids if I have enough material. We'll see what happens. But like I said, I could even show you the lids right now. These are also sanded down. That looks to be the same consistency as the fender, or maybe this looks a little bit. This has a little bit more flake in it. So we'll see what happens. All right, you guys can see the difference. I don't know. So I'm not gonna let that go to waste. We're gonna spray another quote. When you're spraying metal flake, you have to be mindful of how much material you're spraying on top. You do not want to get runs in this phase of the metal flake process. So you have to just take it a little bit slow. Let the clear coat adhere to the surface, do its thing. Then after that, I guess you could spray it a little heavy, but I would really recommend not to, because once it starts running, it's going to start pulling all that metal flake and it's going to look hideous. All right, so you give it the 15 minutes of flash time. You come over here, you look for a spot where you could actually touch and feel, you know, like one of these spots right here where I have the masking tape. Touch it, feel it, see how it feels. If it's a little sticky, then it's ready for the next coat. I would just advise you not to spray it too heavy with the metal flake, because you can start running, and the runs in this, you know, step of the process will show in your final in your final coat. So we're just going to give it the flashing. I'll come over here, probably touch this. It feels like it's dry to me. See that? It's not even it's not sticking at all. So we might be ready for another coat of metal flake, but I'm going to give it 5 more minutes. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes just to be on the safe side, because I would really hate to get runs right now, because then I'll have to let it dry and then spray it again with the metal flake to repair those runs. All right, you don't want runs where where your designs or your stencils are going to be at. It's going to start dragging the metal flake, and it's going to get very heavy metal flake in that run. So you got to let it dry. Give it a couple extra minutes. Doesn't matter. Give it 20 minutes, and then you can spray all the metal flake you want without worrying about drips, because right now drips will completely suck, and then you'll have to, like I said, you'll have to let it dry and then respray it again. So you guys can see it. Let's look for those scratches. You see, I don't see them anymore. Do I see them? I don't see the scratches. So, and then mindful, keep in mind we're also going to spray more coats. So all of that's going to be filled in, and we're going to have a nice smooth surface to paint on. So you can see it down over here. You see the consistency of the metal flake, and then over here. All right, and that's because I'm not spraying down over there. So if you know your design and you know your base coat, my base coat's going to be all down here. But you see how metal flake, and then you have the base down over here. You just have to keep that in mind. Try to keep it uniform, wherever you're going to paint at. I know this is going to be a base coat. No. This is going to be flames. But this, however, is behind, the forks. It's behind the forks. You're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to make sure that I have consistent metal flake throughout my design area. Down here, I could care less, because this is going to be base coat anyways. I'm going to cover this up. So I'm not too worried about that. just make sure your main surface will be consistent with the metal flake, because that will transfer over to your final product and your candy, and of course whatever you decide to put on top. All right, so we'll set the timer for 10 minutes, and then we're gonna make sure that we hit at least these spots that I can see that needs to be just needs a little bit more clear. And the reason why we put our metal flake back in the container that we mixed it in, metal flake is heavier, it will settle down, so it doesn't take that long for the metal flake to settle. This has been sitting for about 2 minutes, and you could already see the top, it doesn't have the metal flake, or it's got a little bit of it. So if you were to spray this as is, you'll have inconsistency in your metal flake. So that's why we put it back in here. The bottom of the spray gun goes on top because you flip it upside down, and then it starts to settle. And right before you put it back into your spray gun, of course, you're going to give it another mix, and then it's going to turn the metal flake upside down again, and then your metal flake is going to start dropping down. But you'll have a more consistent spray pattern when you have the metal flake freshly mixed. So that's why I like doing that. I like putting it over there, and then on top of that, of course, it doesn't dry in the nozzle. And then of course you have the metal flake dropping into the nozzle. You might clog it up depending on the nozzle size. And if you guys are wondering, we're spraying with the 1.4 right now, because I want to spray that with my final coat as well. I'm going to use every single little bit of metal flake, even in my top coat. I'm going to use this one again because there's still metal flake in there, and I'm going to use all of it. Right, nothing's going to go to waste. I'm going to use all of it, and it's okay if I have a little bit of metal flake in my final coat. I'm going to sand it down anyways. So, all right, let's go ahead and set the timer and then respray this. All right, so we spray the second coat. You guys can see pretty dry, but I'm giving it a few extra minutes to flash off. Good coverage overall. You can check that out. I didn't have enough material to paint the saddlebags after all. I sprayed it a little bit heavy. No runs, perfect metal flake job, I guess. So now we're going to spray we're going to try to spray 2 more coats of clear so we can seal it, and we have enough material to sand down and smooth out all the metal flake. Of course, it's not going to be flat or smooth or anything like that because of the imperfections of the metal flake. All right, so here's the same container. Like I said, I'm going to use all of the metal flake. I went ahead and I just added clear, so you could actually mix this and you will see that's the consistency of the metal flake that's going to be. So it's going to be a little bit extra metal flake on top, and it's going to be the final coat. So, and then of course we let this dry for 24 hours, whatever weather conditions you have in your location. If you want to give it 48 hours, if you're spraying a lot of coats, we have 2 coats of clear. This is going to be 3 coats, so we're probably going to do 4 coats. So yes, I would say 24 hours should be enough. If it gets really cold at night, then maybe you'll probably have to give it an extra 12 hours. But yeah, this looks very good. We're going to go ahead and put this in our spray gun and then seal it, spray it. You guys saw when I touched the fuel tank, it wasn't sticky or anything like that, so I'm not too worried about running in this phase. So I'm going to spray it a little bit heavy, just so I can have maybe just 1 coat of clear. But we'll just see how this turns out. So like I said, I'm using every little flake in there by mixing my final clear in the same container, so I get to use all of the metal flake that I like. Alright, so we sprayed the final coat. Whatever I had mixed in, you guys saw earlier, I only had enough for 1 final coat. Now of course we could mix up some more clear. Like I said, we could build up those layers so we could have enough to kind of knock down, but it was a heavy coat. I think I'm okay with it. Just 1 coat. That way I only have 3 coats of clear instead of 4. This should dry, and then I'm gonna start sanding it down. I should have enough material. I just barely had enough to spray 1 final coat. Like I mentioned, You know, if you have a spray and bake, if you have a spray and bake, you're not watching these videos. But you know, if it's hot or whatever, you could spray the extra coat. I don't know. I'm gonna be thinking about it. I'm gonna be thinking about if I should spray one more coat of clear. But I think I'm okay with it. I'll keep on, you know, thinking about it. So I could also set my timer for 15 minutes, mix up a little bit more clear, and then spray it. I think that's what I'm going to do. All right. So this is pretty much the end of this video. It's a long video. These tutorials they're long videos, and they take time to, you know, explain the whole process. But we sprayed one coat of just clear. I'm going to use the same container so I could get all that little bit of flake that's still left in there. So I'm going to reuse this. You know what? I'm going to spray one more coat. So, because I mean, you can see that it's still, you know, orange peely, but that's because of, like I mentioned, we only have one coat, and we're right on top of the metal flake. The metal flake has all the imperfections of the metal, so that's why you would spray another coat of clear. So like I said, you could build up that layer, and you can have a nice smooth surface without risking burning into your metal flake or burning through and getting into your base. If you burn through your base, I have a video what I did. You know, depending on your pattern layout, as long as it's, you know, where your base coat's going to be at, then you're fine. But if this is going to be your final product, and let's just say we decide to paint this candy apple red, and we have a burn through, let's say down here, that's going to be obviously noticeable. So that's the main reason why we're going to spray one more coat of clear, so we don't burn through while we're trying to flatten the surface. All right. If we do burn through, we're going to have to redo this whole process. And since it's wet right now, we could actually just add one more coat of clear, so we have that little bit of extra play when we're flattening the surface for, you know, the next process. So here's the fuel tank. You guys can see the consistency of the metal flake looks fantastic. Looks great. Very happy with it. No runs. So it's just, you know, leaving it for that little bit extra time to dry, it really helped out. So if you have a fast reducer, then of course, or a fast activator, you don't have to wait the 10 to 15 minutes. That's why people like spraying with the fast activator with the metal flake. You could lay down the coats like that. And on top of that, of course, you could spray 7 coats of clear and have it dry within 12 hours. This is medium activator. It's a cool day, so this will take a little bit of time to dry. But if you're shooting it with the fast activator, you could spray maybe even 4 coats, 5 coats, and it'll probably be dry within 12 to 24 hours. So those are the benefits. I don't like using the fast activator because I like my clear to kind of run a little bit and smoothen out. So it gives me a little bit less prep time and sanding time. So you have to weigh your options, all right? It is what it is. So these are for my helmet that I'm, you know, doing. I'm currently working on at the same time. And so I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes. Come back. We're gonna mix in. We're gonna mix one more coat. I'm not sure if I'm gonna spray this again. I think I'm gonna leave that. You know what? I'm gonna spray it again. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching yet another video. Like I said, give yourself room. Make sure you don't run, or make sure you don't get any runs during the metal flake. Right now, like I said, we touched this little piece. You can see it's dry. So that's how, you know, I had that confidence. When I sprayed my final coat heavy, I knew that I wasn't going to get any runs in the metal flake. If you get runs in your clear, it's fine. You're going to end up sanding it down. It's okay. It's okay if you get runs. But like I said, just be a little extra cautious when you're spraying the metal flake so you don't get any runs. And then, of course, you're going to have to redo the whole thing, because once it starts running, you can't get it to stop. All right? You just can't, because the more material you add, it's going to be a lot more noticeable, unless you let it flash for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and then you try covering it up or you try blending it in. I don't know. All right, life's a risk. Thanks for watching. Leave a like in the video, please. Get out there and ride. Later.